Welcome everyone to episode 22 of Rhythm Encounter, RPG Fans Music Podcast. I'm Stephen Meyerink, Taylor's on the boards. I am your perennial host, and joining me today is a new face to RPG fan music. Well, you're not new anymore. You're an old
relatively
face.
New.
Yeah.
I'm still mostly new. I'm Mike Sollosi, Monsoon on the boards, and I am super excited about our guest today. Oh man, it's gonna be great.
Yes, today we have the great pleasure of speaking to Chris Geehan and Dan Byrne-McCullough of HyperDuck SoundWorks. Dan and Chris, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us on.
We've been big fans of your work. I know when I hired Mr. Sollosi here, I believe we actually, you did a review of the Penny Arcade 4 soundtrack, didn't you, Mike?
I did. That was my
that was your entrance exam.
Yeah, it was my resume piece, and it was also my first review that got published on RPG Fan.
Yeah,
so I'm a big fan.
And I first became familiar with y'all's work through Dust. I actually heard the soundtrack before I knew anything about the game, and it convinced me to go buy the game just so I could hear it. It's just one of those cases where I'm easily bought by music I enjoy, especially when it comes to games. So, kudos on that.
Cheers.
And I think, Mike, you're going to start off with the questions here, so go right ahead.
Sure. All right, now, first, we'd love our listeners to hear a little bit of background about you guys. So go ahead and tell us how the two of you met and what circumstances led to you collaborating. And also, I guess, your musical background a little bit. So go ahead, inform us.
Go for it, Dan.
All right. So me and Chris have known each other for a long time. We've been friends since we were teenagers. And so we'd always kind of mucked around playing music in bands and stuff like that, really, really awful bands. Then eventually we started to actually educate ourselves and go to college, and we went through all the rigmarole of doing some music diplomas, and we even went on to move on to university across the water in Newcastle upon Tyne. We did a jazz degree and a lot of performance, centered around performance. Chris was a drummer and a piano player, and I was a guitarist. So we spent a lot of time playing together and living together and playing games together. So I guess that was our background before we did any sort of video game music.
And then in first year of university was when we did a favor for a friend called Dan Ramar, and we ended up writing music for a freeware game called Elysian, and that's just kind of where we started everything, I guess. After that, people said they really liked it, and we thought it was kind of interesting that people really like video game music that's not from their childhood, so we kind of just kept going with it and just kept, I don't know, we were going to be jazz musicians, working the circuit, but we decided to be video game composers.
Yeah,
pretty true though.
I took piano lessons for a couple of years in high school before I went to college, and my teacher was a jazz pianist, and he was like, a 60-year veteran of playing jazz shows. So when he would play, I'd be like, C chord, and he'd be like, here, let me invert that for you 400 times upside down with one hand. Yeah, so jazz is not easy to play.
Yeah, jazz piano is no joke. I was a pianist for many years, and I didn't even approach that level of ability. I
think you pretty much have to have no social life to be an amazing jazz musician. But
I'm glad we got you guys.
Yeah, our lives are enriched for the better for the choice that you made to compose game soundtracks, for sure.
Yeah. If only we were more skilled, We'd probably be a lot poorer, actually, as well. But that's a different story as well.
So, can we talk a little bit about your creative process? Like, you've worked with Zeboid games a lot. When you make a game soundtrack, do you work with the designers? Like, do you get storyboards and artwork for the mood of the music that should go with it? Or, how does your process work? Like, do you guys work separately, or do you work really closely, or does it sort of vary?
Well, generally, we've kind of got a routine now that we know what to ask when we go into a new project. But because we've worked with Robert and Bill on Penny Arcade beforehand, we've developed a process with them that we actually developed through working with Dean, which was really, talking about an area in a game, talking about music that they like, building up a small list of style references and influences from other games or albums or whatever, to get an idea of what the musical tone and mood would be like for that area. And then we just kind of use that and repeat that process for every aspect of the game, whether it's sound or a cutscene or an actual, a battle theme or whatever it is, and it seems to work pretty well for us. So we just kind of, we do that. We have kind of a sketchboard of, YouTube links that just go to various computer game, tracks, and that just sort of, it sets up, the idea in our head, but we never really follow the style that is influencing the whole area of the game for that part. It's kind of just like, it's like a Kickstarter, it just gets the ball rolling kind of thing, and then we go off on a happy tangent and come up with something absolutely totally different than what they asked for, and they seem to like it anyway, so it's okay. We're pretty lucky,
Robert Boyd loves talking you guys up on Twitter. He's maybe even a bigger fan of you than I am. We
were going to hire PR, but he does he does plenty of it for us, so there's no need.
Right on. Yeah, so do you have a favorite thing or a notable thing that strikes you about working with Robert and Bill from Z-Boyd?
They're honest, and they know what they want. And they know, they're kind of like Deans, they know what they want, but they also know to just let us do our thing, which is really nice. Don't really always get that perfect balance of, clear referencing and people sort of just having, enough confidence to leave it in our hands and let us sort of put our mark on it. So it's good that way, and they're just really nice guys, so.
Yeah, we're really lucky. They're always really excited to get a new track from us, and thankfully they actually like our music in general. So, but I mean, sometimes it's hard. Robert, you want to see what the Skype conversation looks like. Sometimes we'll have been busting ourselves all week putting together a track, and then we'll stick it up and explain it, and then Robert will go, "Yeah, this works,"
and that's it. That's
it. And we go, "Oh my god, maybe he didn't like it that much." And then a few days later, he'll be like, "Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite tracks. It's amazing."
Yeah.
What?
Man, or you give him a big long-winded explanation. You're like, "Oh my god, I really hope he likes this track. It's the final boss track," and then he'll be like, "Sounds good."
You're like, "I thought this was gonna be a harder sell, man."
Yeah. But we've learned that means he's somersaulting in his chair, applauding, air horns, everything. He's just celebrating that tune to highest of his ability, I guess. But so sound good means, oh my god, that is amazing. I've never heard something so good in Robert language.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in his mouth necessarily, but I mean, those Z-Boyd does everything in their games, from coding to basic design to art assets. Everything is all those two guys except for the audio. So that they have chosen to work with you a second time and are such enthusiastic fans of yours, really, I think that your work blows them away, because it's something completely out of their wheelhouses, and you do such a stellar job of doing it. So let's talk about some of these, both your most recent games and this upcoming Cosmic Star Heroine from Z-Boyd. Cosmic Star Heroine is very distinctly a science fiction game. It's inspired by Phantasy Star, among other things. And the soundtrack, at least the tracks that you've released so far, really do match the setting and tone. And I'm super excited to play the game, if it wasn't already obvious. And it's really different from Dust, which was a fantasy setting with sort of more atmospheric orchestral music, and Penny Arcade 4 really went all over the map with some orchestral stuff, some more straightforward rock stuff, because that game is, sort of a send-up or like a pastiche of traditional Japanese RPG settings. Like, oh, here's the desert part, here's the jungle, here's the future tower, here's the more, antiquated tower. Yeah. So that's three very different RPGs with different settings and tones. So, when you approached each of those games, how was your process different for each one?
I mean, for Dust, I don't know if you've heard them, but I think we've got some of the kind of classic tracks on the soundtrack, because the soundtrack for Dust started out completely different from what it ended up as. I mean, it was this kind of old school Japanese 90s out there brash music with crazy synths. Yeah, and it started out like that. We'd pretty much finished the soundtrack, and then at the last minute, not the last minute, but after we'd thought we'd finished it, it was from some producers at Microsoft, or Dean had suggested, he goes, "I think we need to make this more orchestral," and I was like, okay. So we had to redo the whole thing, which was interesting, but absolutely worth it, I think, in the end. So, but that was a good call, whoever did that, because I think the music definitely suited the style much better in the end because of the art style of the game, and it gave it a wider appeal for sure, I would imagine. Then as for Penny Arcade game, that was a really good area for us. I think probably because I'm like 28 years old, so is Chris. We both grew up in that kind of age of the 16-bit era RPGs and all those games, and it's pretty much in our veins as to what those games sound like. And then we were really lucky because we just got to kind of fuse those old school sounds with just our own stuff, which is just whatever we feel like doing sometimes, it really depends. But it was always in service of that type of game that we both pretty much grew up playing quite a lot of. So, and I think that's probably why they hired us, because they know that's what we were good at. We had a kind of an instinctive feel for that type of game. Then for Cosmic Star, I don't know, I'll let Chris talk about that, because that's all just synth land.
80s, the 1980s. Yeah. The year was 1980. Yeah, Cosmic Star was just like Robert was showing it to us, I think, or talking about it whenever we were coming to the end of episode 4, and basically asked us if we wanted to do Cosmic Star, and I think he pitched it as, what was it? It was like a RPG based in the future where you played a secret agent who is also like this like movie star. I was like, okay, that sounds perfectly fine. I will do that. And I was like, I know you're gonna go for it. And he's like, and he like briefly touched on like something that was like, early 90s, and I just like flooded him with like 1980s like references so quickly, just because I was like finally getting to jump into that world. So we definitely get to sort of flex our 80s, early 90s muscles in this to some extent. Kind of Phantasy Star 4. God, there's so many references. Even like the likes of like Bleach. That wasn't one of their references, but like we threw that in there, and then you got Chrono Trigger. That's obviously a massive influence for Cosmic Star, if not musically. Definitely. The roots of the game definitely stem from that.
Especially just looking at how the parties of characters move around and encounter enemies. It really screams Chrono Trigger. Yeah,
no, big time. Like, I think they went for a kind of blend of Chrono Trigger and another game. I'm not sure. It might have been Phantasy Star 4. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, because I can't remember because I know they were originally going for like a kind of like, it was just going to be like the Chrono Trigger battle system, but they went for a kind of hybrid as well. So like, that they were putting their mark on it at the same time. So it was kind of like up to us to put our mark on, what were very obviously late 80s, early 90s musical influences. So it's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of saxophone used in the soundtrack. Whether Dan has agreed with it or not, I think he's kind of got Stockholm syndrome with the saxophone now that I've put everywhere, and he's just a slave of the saxophone. It's great. Yeah. But no, I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. I think we're approaching, tell you now, maybe a rough amount of. This is just music tracks, by the way. This is not the cutscene tracks, which obviously will be on the final release as well. But let me see. Just looking in my top secret folder. Yeah, it's 50 or 49 tracks, I think. 49 separate like music themes for people and places overall in the game. So it's bigger than Dust already, and we haven't even started scoring. We haven't properly started scoring all the cutscene stuff yet. So it's I'd say it's the biggest project we've done to date. I think what we wanted to do was kind of sort of outperform ourselves to some extent over Dust, because that was such a massive thing for us anyway. But yeah, I think we've done a good job anyway, so hopefully everyone else thinks so.
That's exciting. Yeah, no, I mean, I had no idea it would be your biggest project, but like we said, we're fans,
I don't think we realized it was going to be our biggest project. We were just like, like I expected maybe the scope of like Penny Arcade episode 4 again. But it's massive. Like, I mean, we've been working on it since the Kickstarter got funded, which was January of last year, and like we've been working flat out. Like, there's been no lull in work flow for Cosmic Star for us, like for the past year and a bit. So
very cool.
It's good. Yeah, it's cool.
That's exciting. I think Penny Arcade 4 only has 25 to 28 tracks from you on it.
Really?
I think it's around 25, but it has 2 from Penny Arcade 3 and some arranged versions.
The extra ones. Yeah.
Yeah, but 49, man. Oh,
yeah, and this is before
wait.
like anything else goes on it. I'm just like,
the audio
mix and master all of this. Yay!
The audio, the selfish audiophile in me who does not have to mix and master them is like doing a little twirl, like woo.
Yeah.
Sort of on that similar note, when you worked on Dust and Penny Arcade 4, I know like with the Dust soundtrack you have the old school versions of the songs and you have some arrangements on the Penny Arcade 4 soundtrack. Are there any ever tracks that you make that don't get, they sort of don't hit the cutting room floor, or they get left on the cutting room floor? Like, are those the kinds of things you might eventually release someday, or or do you usually like work very cleanly where there's no like extra material left behind?
Do you mean for Cosmic Star or in general?
More in general, like in this case for PA4 and Dust, since those ones are actually games that are done.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky with a lot of PA4. I mean, most of our relationship with Z-Boyd has been very fortunate for us. They've been totally on board with nearly everything we've written. And usually because we work with the developers at an earlier stage in development of the song, then that means that if it's not working out at the very beginning, we'll change it, so it's quite rare, I find, that we'll have to completely scrap a song, but that does happen so often. But if it gets scrapped and it wasn't right, it's probably not right to finish anyway, and we wouldn't really want to just release a rubbish song because we worked on it, if you know what I mean.
Cool. So is there a plan to release CSH in a physical form as well, or is it just going to be digital via the usual channels like Bandcamp and Louder?
I don't know. I mean, it hasn't really been discussed. I mean, we could do it if there was a big demand for it. Definitely consider it, but at the minute, we're literally doing one day at a time. We're just because it's such a mammoth sized project that it's just just getting it done is the only thing we're really thinking about at the minute. We're only starting now to think about, mix and mastering when that's going to happen for just the in-game version of the soundtrack. And then, I think initially it'll just be the digital version of it because it's
right.
It's a good bit of work to do the physical release. But I do really, I really like that kind of thing, and I like collecting physical copies of soundtracks that I really like as well, and so I know that will be something a lot of people were asking about. But for now, I'd say just digital, just to keep our sanity.
This is really neither here nor there, but I mean the market for both games and music is in a really fascinating place right now, because no one's really sure how much people value physical and how much people are willing to pay for digital, and there's a lot of uncertainty and experimentation going on in that front, but enough about that, I guess. Now you have these 3 great soundtracks that we've been talking to, are sort of your I would say your 3 largest releases that are all RPGs that our fans are many of whom are very interested in. But you've also done a couple of arranged tracks on the side for different music projects, like the Fez FZ albums. Did a bonus track for Super Ubi Land. You did some music for Chrono Trigger music for 25 games. So, from a musician's perspective, what's the difference in terms of time and effort and approach between original pieces for your soundtracks and arranged pieces for works like those?
The approach, it's a lot more difficult, I would say, because if I'm arranging someone else's music, especially like the Zelda remix, the Hoy Small Fry one we did way back, or like the Chrono Trigger ones more recently, I had the same kind of scared feeling when they were getting put together, because it's I don't know. I mean, some people will do remixes and they'll just release them and they'll be happy with them, the way they are. They may not be, the most incredible remixes, but they're, those people, they enjoyed making it, and it's just their way of going, I really love that game, or I love that time in my childhood where I played Chrono Trigger or Zelda or whatever, and this is kind of my tribute to it. Whereas kind of shitting myself whenever I'm like remixing stuff like that, because it's such a big deal. I don't want to half-heartedly do it.
And you want to dishonor that composer that you really respect so much.
Yeah, and like there's no one, like, not that we, not a Robert and Bill, for example, would go. Well, I guess they do. They do tell us to stop by saying, "Yep, that sounds good. We can approve that," and that wraps up a track. But there's no one there to, wrap up your remix except you, or maybe the album release deadline. So like for Chrono Trigger, I was pretty much like rehashing it right up until the point where Randy from Elder Geek was like, I'm going to be releasing this tomorrow. I was like, right, there you go. Take that version of the remix. And you have to just sort of, it's that thing that a lot of composers, I think, get, where you have to eventually stop sort of tinkering with music and just, that has to be it. You can't just, the longer you like tinker with something, you're going to just sort of risk making it worse, or, you're fine tuning stuff that only you'll really notice. Like, so I'd say remixing is a lot more time consuming than working with a developer. Essentially is almost like your director, your music director, or at the end of the day they're your client. So if they say yes, that's done, then it's done. That's why we don't really do remixes too often, because just don't have the time. They take up so much time, it's crazy. Like, so
yeah, that makes sense. I guess you have a lot more considerations in mind when you're doing that too, in terms of like, how does this compare to the original? How close am I going? How close am I not going?
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, it's a bit of a head melt.
It's sort of like you're trying to do, you're trying to paint over someone else's painting, but starting from scratch.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it, I'd say. Yeah.
You don't want to end up like that woman that repainted a better version of the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was a bad idea.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, that was the worst remix I've ever seen.
I prefer it.
you would prefer it.
I like the avant.
Well, it has the comedy value of like extremely bad poetry, but
yeah. I need to see that picture now.
Just look it up on Google and laugh. It's hilarious, but it's sort of tragic. It's painful to think about what that means.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We actually, this is not really related, but me and Dan have a folder that we've collected over years called, it used to be called 10-Minute Wonders, and it was kind of like our way of like, what amount of music and what quality of music could we make in 10 minutes? And it's full of some things I would probably compare to that painting. I would say definitely that rework of that painting, and it's never 10 minutes. It's always like 3 hours, 4 hours. I've spent a stupid amount of time on some songs that I've made for just Dan's ears. Like,
no one else.
No one else is like, we have a folder, top secret folder that we shared, and no one else is ever going to hear. It would be the end of HyperDuck SoundWorks as we know it, I'd say.
It's the magic sketchbook. That's where all the kazoo themes are.
Yeah, that's what they are, kazoo themes. Yeah,
that sounds like Prince's vault of unreleased music that he just draws from once a year just to mess around.
Oh, we never draw from that folder. There's nothing there that can be salvaged. Like, so.
That one's under lock and key, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, yes.
So,
and now I'm curious. Wish you hadn't told that story now.
I mean, I can give you an idea of what's in there. There is one song called Dan Laugh Synth, where I sampled Dan's laugh into a sample library and then put a drum beat to it. So
that sounds wonderful.
And that's one of the more digestible songs, I'd say. So if you call it a song.
You stretch creative muscles that way, though.
Yeah, no, I miss doing that. We should do that more often, Dan, actually.
It's like, whenever you get these super forward-thinking companies that give everyone a day every month and they say, go do whatever you want and see what ideas come out. That's kind of what we do. It's like a little palate cleansing exercise, except for music.
Yeah.
I can dig that.
Yeah. So if you just don't want to hear what comes out.
Yeah.
So speaking of things that are maybe under lock and key, can you guys do you guys have any other projects upcoming that you're working on that you can talk about, or is that sort of still up in the air or a secret?
we've been focusing on getting rid of a lot of our projects, because it felt like we possibly took on quite a few too many projects at once, and then the scope of Cosmic Star stretched out and got so much larger that we figured, we better just focus on this. I think we've got a couple of smaller things that I don't know right now if we can actually talk about them, I'm afraid. But,
that's okay.
I don't even know what they are. So
yeah.
You're like, no, literally, we can't talk about them. We don't know what they are.
Yeah. We'd have to ask the third HyperDuck.
Yeah.
The one that nobody knows about.
Should have actually cleared it. Could we talk about Monsters and Monocles?
Yeah. No, of course. I think that's fine.
Yeah, we're working with the Retro Dreamer guys on their next game called Monsters and Monocles, which is like a kind of a top-down 4-player shooter, and it's you can actually check it out it's on Steam Greenlight, I think, and they're going for an early release soon, and it's been a lot of fun. Actually, it's a completely different soundtrack from what we're currently working on. So, but we'll hopefully get some updates on that pretty soon. I'd say put some music out there.
Yeah, I think they'd be cool if us. We need to confirm with them, but we'll probably be able to share some of that music publicly soon, I guess. I mean, you can hear some of it in their trailer, but yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of weird. There's a gremlin choir used it quite extensively in that soundtrack so far. So yeah, it's like orchestra with gremlins. Yeah, that's what it is. That's the best way I could describe the music.
I'm down.
Yeah.
So we'll skip to some more general stuff here as we kind of get ready to wind up. But I like to ask this question of every musician we have on the show. Who are some of you guys' musical heroes? Like, your favorite artists, your favorite game composers, favorite, mainstream bands. Who are they? And then sort of related to that, if you all could do a collab with anybody, living, dead, a Japanese musician, American, from anywhere in the world, no actual terrestrial limitations here. Who would that person be, or persons?
You go ahead first, Chris.
What was the first question?
I buried like 4 in there. Musical heroes, like your really influential or your favorite artists.
Musical heroes. I would say the first one that came to my mind is a Bleach composer, Shiro Sagisu.
Yes.
Sagisu. Just all the music in Bleach. Like, I binged watched that at a very unbusy part of my life. I'm pretty sure I lay in bed for a good solid 4 to 5 days and watched all of Bleach. And the music in Bleach is just incredible. And I think after watching Bleach so much, that there was always something in me that I wanted to pay homage to that soundtrack in some ways. And I kind of get the chance to, we got a chance to kind of do that in some of the themes for Cosmic Star, so it's pretty cool. If I could work with anybody in particular, probably the Trollolo guy, but he's dead, so. Yeah.
Now I want to hear some of his music sampled and synthesized by you in your secret notebook.
Oh. Shit. Yeah, okay. Deal. And we will share that one with you.
Oh, perfect.
Yahtzee.
Oh man, I've just signed my.
That sounds like a slam dunk.
What do you reckon, Dan? Music hero.
I mean, a sort of consistent hero for me. It does change all the time. But consistent one would probably be Pat Metheny group.
Oh, of course.
Anything that Pat Metheny does, I guess if you don't know, he's pretty big in the States, isn't he? A composer and guitar player, mostly kind of jazz music, but the breadth of stuff that he writes is just unbelievable. And as an improviser, he's just one of my favorite. So that kind of informs a lot of my ideas, although I wouldn't even be anywhere near his level. As for game composers, I mean, I owe way too much to Nobuo Uematsu for Final Fantasy VII. I mean,
yeah, he's a hell of a starting point.
And I mean, I'm sure it's the same answer for a million game composers, but
we actually, I was going to say a lot of composers are very influenced, particularly by FF7. Our last guest was FF7 as well.
Yeah, I mean, 8 is good as well. I like a lot of his stuff, but 7 stuck with me. I think but that's because of the story relevance, and it was just I loved it. But
and Final Fantasy VII was the first game in the series that was released in Europe. So was that your first exposure to Uematsu?
Yeah, I think so. I think I played. I don't think he was involved in Mystic Quest, was he? It was called Mystic Quest on the Game Boy in Europe, and I don't know. I get confused by what they're all named.
There's so many of them that may have their names changed from region to region.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a mess.
Yeah, I think 7 would have been the first time I'd heard him, and it was just because it was all thematic and it was character themes and all that. It was the first time I'd really heard that, and I loved it. And it's because I loved the game story as well that I think you put so much attachment to it. And I'm pretty sure everyone who loves Final Fantasy VII thinks the same about the music.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that informed a lot of my writing style, I guess, But I love other things. I love a lot of them. Hotline Miami, I really enjoyed.
Oh, that's great stuff. Yeah.
All those guys, awesome.
I know. There's so many people, but I could never have touched any of that. Really, I would never have come up with that. Any of the music that was going on there, I don't think so. That's great.
So good. I'm just going to say also every single composer that worked on Mega Man X.
Yeah.
I was my default answer usually.
Yeah, that Capcom just battery of composers. It's kind of tricky to figure out exactly who composed what Mega Man thing. Same thing for Castlevania music, because it was just sort of an internal Capcom team, or Konami for Castlevania, but so much of it is amazing. Oh.
Yeah.
The list is I think it's 5, 6, or 4. I don't know. It's a good handful of composers, like the X series right through to. Well, I stopped playing at 4, but
you picked a good stopping point. No joke.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was my last one, but the music in that one was really good as well, actually. But yeah.
Excellent. So yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm the same age as you also.
I'm roughly the same age as you.
Yeah, so Final Fantasy VII was my first in the series too. So for me, when I think of that, I talk when we do regular episodes of the music show. If we play a Final Fantasy VII track, I always have to catch myself from making the same comments that I make every time of oh man, that sound font in Final Fantasy VII, it's so distinctive. You could tell FF7 from one note, and it's being my first exposure to to Uematsu's work too. I could definitely dig why it's so influential, because it's why I'm a big fan of game music these days. So
right. So I think we may have touched upon this a little bit, but I was going to ask, do you have any personal favorite game soundtracks that have influenced you, or maybe a particular song that's really stuck with you over the years from particular soundtracks?
I was just going to say Mega Man X again, but just because it took me 13 years to complete Mega Man X.
Hey, congratulations! You finished it.
Yeah,
that final boss can be pretty rough. You got to be super good at that wall jumping.
He's tough as nails. That floating head. Oh, hated him so much.
I get angry when I see people that can do the Hadouken on that boss. They get in there, they don't get hit, and then they Hadouken on the platform, and I'm just
on the platform, just a millisecond after you land on it from some impossible wall dash jump. It's what are you even doing, man?
I get angry when people are better than me at games.
I just accept it and just keel over and cry in a corner, because
so
I could never do the Hadouken.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but are you more of a Storm Eagle guy or more of a, say, Spark Mandrill guy?
Spark Mandrill. I wouldn't call it a remix, but I did, remake the Storm Eagle theme tune with all the original sounds.
That guitar hook at the beginning of Storm,
so good.
That will stick with me forever. That's so great.
You guys are right. I should go play Mega Man X today.
Yeah. I'm getting a hankering for it. Oh man. I don't know. I just gotta be predictable and just say Mega Man X everything. There's no particular tune there. It's just all of them, or maybe the world theme from Final Fantasy VII. I remember that just has always stuck in my head from when I was watching my cousin play it when I was younger. So good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mine are pretty much the same. They're just the ones that really stuck with me when I was younger, and they're kind of ingrained in your formative years, or your early years, sorry. And I don't know. Oh, one soundtrack I loved when I first heard it was Quake 2.
Oh, yes.
You remember that? Was that Sonic Mayhem, or was that?
It was Sonic Mayhem.
I think that was Sonic Mayhem. That was an awesome soundtrack.
I loved it just because I was a guitar player, and it was just riffs and just guitar and drums. It was perfect. I loved it.
Yeah. The Quake 3 one was pretty good as well, actually. I remember Rocktronica. It's the only track I remember from that. It was a really good track. But yeah, that list could just keep going. You know, it's hard to stop at one song.
Yeah, well, it's like, pick one for now.
Yeah, you say pick one song. I picked an entire soundtrack. So
hey, that's perfect.
So right, now we were talking earlier about the different games that you've done and how each you had a different sort of thematic approach to each soundtrack. So is there a genre of music that you'd like to experiment with that you haven't messed around with before?
I mean, it was kind of the 80s for me, like that kind of blend, and then Cosmic Star kind of let me do that, but once I was able to do it, I didn't necessarily like an 80s style. So I don't know, I can't really think past that one because I wanted to do that one for so long, so I've got to really think about it. I mean, Dan and I are writing an original EP together at the minute, which is kind of letting us do just new sounds that we haven't done before, kind of like sort of prepared felt piano and awesome guitar sounds and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, it's for me, it's hard to say what I want to do next. I'm just kind of excited to see what sort of comes our way.
I mean, I guess related to that question, is there a style of music that you'd like to see featured in more video games, or is the answer to this going to be 1980s also?
No, I think the less the better, because that means we can do it. And,
right on.
I don't know. I mean, I'd love to hear some genuine kind of folk music or more acoustic instruments in a real setting, you know. But I don't know if there's many games that lend themselves to that style. None that I can think of so much. But apart from maybe like the stuff, the Elder Scrolls stuff. But I mean, Jeremy done an amazing job on that already.
Yeah,
I know Austin Wentry's doing cool stuff with the next Banner Saga stuff.
Yeah,
oh
the
my
Banner
gosh.
Saga stuff is
When you said folk acoustic music, that is exactly where my mind went. The Banner Saga's music is so incredible.
Yes, it is nice actually from what I've heard. And yeah, so it's already been done. It's all been done.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could go electroacoustic music, which is pretty crazy. You could do anything with that. I mean, I don't know. That's the kind of exciting thing. I mean, it depends on whatever next game gets made. You know, games are still in their infancy in my eyes. So the music is going to change with that. And the exciting thing is that we don't really know what's going to be around the corner. I could never have predicted Hotline Miami, and I could never have predicted anyone was going to do with half of these games. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I always get really excited about that. We have that our like mission statement at RPG Fan Music, and like how we like spread appreciation of game music or whatever. And it is kind of crazy. Like 10 years ago, I just would not have realized the scope of how like game audio has expanded in terms of like the number of styles and the way people are going about doing it. It's just crazy. Yeah. Considering it used to be like, all right, this Japanese composer did a soundtrack for a game and maybe they'll release a soundtrack for it in Japan only.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so annoying.
I think we'll wind down now. This last question is sort of a softball. Do you have any general advice for people who do what you all do? Closing comments, anything you'd like to say, anything you want to plug, go right ahead. Good time to do it.
Well, we've said this a few times before, but and we get emails in every week, I would say, from other composers who are like just starting out or have been going for a while and just aren't hitting the stride they want to hit them. I would just always say, go look for your work, and while trying to emulate other people's sound, to like learn how that technique is done, also try to put your own mark on your sound. You want to, like, Dan and I, we do try styles. We've done orchestral, we've done 80s-ish, whatever it is. We've done rock. We've done lots of different styles. We've done if you could call it gypsy jazz. We've done that, but we've always tried to put our own kind of mark on it. So I'd say try and put your own original mark on it, and also just make sure you're actually enjoying doing it, because if you're miserable, then it's really, really not worth it. Like, I don't think me and Dan are miserable at any of the work that we get to do. Like, it's always fun. It's quite incredible, and we're really, really lucky. We're really humbled that we actually do get to do what we do and have that much creative freedom with it. So yeah, there's something in there somewhere, I think.
I would say just listen and absorb as much as you possibly can, and find a way to enjoy it as much as possible, because what's the point otherwise?
That's the truth.
And then I know that's a bit of a cop out of an answer. It's like the follow your dreams.
Listen to everything and work harder than everyone.
Well,
be yourself.
Yeah.
Be HyperDucks.
Be HyperDucks. That's a good closer.
Yeah. No, that sounds so pretentious. Be us. Be us.
No, I totally agree. Not to hop on your coattails or anything, but like that's the best advice I received. Like I before I went to grad school, I was like working at a place I didn't like, and I had a lot of people that were like, well, you have a job, keep it, and then I had a lot of people who were, well, you're miserable, so go do what makes you happy. So. And that was the right call. So I think that's it may seem like a cop out, but that's really good advice, I think, for people to keep in mind. Because if you hate what you do, then why do it?
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is when you're trying to maybe figure out exactly, what your style is and what's good, you've always got to try and remember you're at the service, first of all, of your client, who's paying you to make music for them, but you're also at the service of the music and the game, and if you forget about that, I think you can get lost so easily, and you just got to always keep that there. It's the service of the game and service of the music.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for that, and guys, thanks so much for taking your time to sit down and talk with us in the studio.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. We like we said at the beginning, we're big fans of your work, so we've been trying to find a good time for quite a while. So to Mike's credit for setting this up, great work as well.
Well, thanks for taking the time, Mike, guys. I really appreciate it.
No. We're the ones who appreciate it, man. I've been just sitting in my chair, just trying to hold myself back a little bit.
I'm impressed actually, because he has been super excited for this. I mean, I'm excited too, but I think Mike is a self-professed Zeboyd and HyperDuck fan. To the extreme. Absolutely. So like every day he's like, I can't wait. I'm like, I know, right? So
maybe not every day. Just conservatively, let's say it was 4 times a week. But yeah, I was very excited for this interview, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us.
Oh, no problem. Maybe we can do a follow-up whenever Cosmic Star is out.
We would love to. Yeah, definitely. Maybe we can highlight some of the music in it.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening, and for Mike, for Chris, and Dan, thanks everybody for being here. Have a good one.